Welcome to another gentle journey through time. You're listening to Bedtime Sleep History, a place where the past softly whispers you to sleep. Tonight, we drift through the delicate vales of Victorian England, a peaceful chronicle of Queen Victoria's long and steady reign, her era known as the Victorian Age, marked by calm rituals, innovation, and quiet strength. So, rest your head. Let the flickering gas lamps of London fade into soft candlelight, and let us begin. She was born in the soft morning hours of May 24th, 1819, at Kensington Palace in the heart of London. A child of royal blood, yet quiet in stature and name. Her birth name was Alexandrina Victoria, but to her family, she was simply Darina. She was born into a world of uncertain royalty. Her father, Prince Edward, Duke of Kent, was the fourth son of King George III, and her place in the line of succession was never meant to matter. But fate had other plans. When Victoria was just 8 months old, her father passed away, leaving her mother, the Duchess of Kent, a widow in a vast and formal palace. Her childhood was not one of playful innocence, but rather of strict routines and cold corridors. She lived under a system known as the Kensington system, a strict set of rules designed by her mother and her advisor, Sir John Conroy. It dictated her every move, from when she could rise to whom she could speak. She was not allowed to walk down the stairs without someone holding her hand. She could not be alone, even for a moment, and was isolated from the court and her extended family. And yet, within this sheltered world, a quiet strength began to form in her. She was a curious child. She loved to sketch, to read, and to dream about lands beyond her window. She was close to her beloved governess, Baroness Lezen, a warm figure who nurtured her imagination and taught her to believe that she might one day be more than a silent figure in the background. And then, when she was just 11, the whispers began. It was June 20th, 1837, a dawn like any other, until the quiet knocking at her door. At just 18 years old, she was awoken by her mother's footsteps and led down the long corridor, to be told that her uncle, King William IV, had died, and that she, Alexandrina Victoria, was now Queen of the United Kingdom. She asked for her bedchamber to be cleared. She stood, alone, fully aware of the crown now resting invisibly above her brow. Later that morning, she held her first council with the ministers. She stood straight, yet softly, and said in a voice that was delicate but unwavering, "I shall be good." And in those 4 words, the Victorian Age began. It would be an age of expansion, of invention, of literature and lace, steam engines and social order. But beneath it all, there would be the calm and careful presence of Victoria herself. In 1839, 2 years into her reign, Victoria met her cousin, Prince Albert of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha again. They had known each other since childhood, but now, as young adults, something had changed. He was quiet, serious, thoughtful, and she, though young and powerful, was deeply drawn to his intellect and gentleness. It was Victoria who proposed. Unusual for a woman, but she was queen. They were married on a cold February morning in 1840. And in Albert, Victoria found not just a husband, but a confidant, an advisor, and the quiet love of her life. Their marriage was filled with affection, letters, walks in the garden, the laughter of children, and the gentle sound of music floating from the palace drawing rooms. Together, they would have 9 children, and Albert would become her trusted partner in governance, helping to modernize the monarchy, advise on social issues, and promote the arts and sciences. Their life together was a portrait of Victorian virtue, order, family, duty, and deep affection. As Victoria matured, so did her empire. From the 1840s through the 1860s, Britain grew into the largest empire the world had ever seen. Yet, unlike the stormy conquests of past rulers, Victoria's expansion was wrapped in diplomacy, trade, and quiet confidence. Railways stitched the land together. The telegraph connected continents. Ships with tall white sails brought silk, spices, and stories from far-off lands. And all the while, Victoria remained a symbol of unity. She attended exhibitions, supported reforms, and sat quietly beneath her parasol at garden parties and grand parades. In 1851, the Great Exhibition was held at the Crystal Palace in Hyde Park, a dazzling display of industrial and cultural progress, and it was Albert's vision that made it happen. It was a time when children read Dickens by candlelight, when women wore corsets and spoke softly, and when tea was more than a drink, it was a ceremony of calm. But all eras of peace hold moments of sorrow. In December of 1861, Prince Albert died of typhoid fever. He was just 42, and Victoria's world fell silent. She dressed in black, and would remain in mourning for the rest of her life. She withdrew from public view, retreating to Balmoral in Scotland, where the quiet hills and open sky could hold her sorrow gently. In those long years of grief, the people worried, but they understood. Because even in absence, Victoria remained their queen. She would not abdicate. She would not falter. She simply mourned. But slowly, gently, she returned. The world moved forward, but Queen Victoria remained in stillness. She became known as the Widow of Windsor. Her black dresses, her heavy veils, and her quiet presence became symbols of solemn dignity. For nearly a decade after Prince Albert's death, she rarely appeared in public. Instead, she governed quietly from behind palace walls. Her letters, carefully written in her neat, sloping hand, still guided ministers and parliament. The palace staff tiptoed through carpeted corridors, carrying her commands wrapped in red leather boxes. She preferred candlelight to gaslight, silk drapes to shouting crowds, and her Highland ponies to processions. But this withdrawal only seemed to deepen the people's affection for her. She was a symbol of devotion, of loyalty to family, of enduring grief carried with grace. One figure helped bring her back into the world: John Brown, a Scottish servant and confidant. He was plain-spoken, fiercely loyal, and walked beside her in the lonely highlands of Balmoral. Some whispered about their closeness, but for Victoria, he was a companion in sorrow, a quiet strength in her darkest days. She would sign her letters, "From the broken-hearted widow," and still she reigned. As years passed, Victoria's children married into the royal houses of Europe. Her daughters became queens and princesses. Her sons became dukes and diplomats. By the 1880s, she was called the grandmother of Europe. Her family tree stretched across the continent, tied by blood yet threatened by politics. Despite the private sorrows, Victoria remained a matriarch to a vast web of nations. She continued her gentle governance, endorsing reforms in child labor, education, and public health. Though she rarely made speeches, her presence still stirred respect and calm. She wrote every day, in her journal, in letters, in state documents, more than 60 million words, carefully preserved. Even in silence, she spoke volumes. Her compassion extended to her people. She supported hospitals, charities, and schools. When cholera swept through the cities, or famine struck the countryside, she offered support, not with fanfare, but with quiet, deliberate care. And while Parliament debated, and the press chattered, Victoria simply remained. In 1876, Queen Victoria received a new title, Empress of India. Though she never visited the subcontinent, she took great interest in the culture, customs, and people of India. Her court grew more diverse. She welcomed Indian servants into her household, most famously Abdul Karim, her munshi, a teacher and attendant who taught her Urdu and Indian etiquette. He would read poetry aloud to her, and she would reply in slow, careful Urdu phrases. Some in the court objected, but Victoria stood firm. In Abdul, she found not just knowledge, but comfort, another companion in her later years. She decorated her journals with Indian designs, ate spiced foods with silver cutlery, and commissioned portraits of herself in Indian attire. Her empire stretched across oceans, but in her heart she kept it close, as though she wished to hold the world gently in her hands. To the British, she was still the queen. But to millions more, she was now empress, a figure of soft strength across continents. The year was 1897, and Victoria had ruled for 60 years. To mark the occasion, Britain prepared the Diamond Jubilee, a celebration unlike any other. Crowds gathered in London, flags fluttered above narrow streets, and choirs rehearsed hymns that echoed through stone cathedrals. On June 22, 1897, Victoria rode in an open carriage. Through a 10-mile route, her expression soft and solemn. She wore black, as always, with white lace and a small crown atop her silver hair. The procession included soldiers from every corner of the empire, Indian cavalry, Canadian riflemen, African regiments in ceremonial dress. They marched in peaceful precision, while crowds wept and cheered in gentle reverence. From the balcony of Buckingham Palace, Victoria gave a rare speech. "From my heart, I thank my beloved people. May God bless them." It was short, it was soft, and it was deeply felt. For a brief moment, the empire was not just a map, but a family, and at its head, an elderly queen, wrapped in lace and memory, smiling softly beneath London's cloudy sky. By the turn of the century, Victoria had become the longest reigning monarch in British history. She spent her final years at Osborne House, a quiet seaside retreat on the Isle of Wight. There, she surrounded herself with family portraits, dog-eared books, and the soft hum of ocean breezes through open windows. She still worked, still signed state papers, still read letters from her ministers. But her steps had grown slower, her eyesight dimmer, her letters shakier. On January 22, 1901, in the calm of the late afternoon, Queen Victoria passed away. She was surrounded by her children and grandchildren, including the future Kaiser Wilhelm II of Germany, and her son, who would become Edward VII. She was 81 years old and had ruled for over 63 years. Her passing marked not just the end of a reign, but the end of an era. The world would move into the 20th century, with its trains, telegraphs, and tensions, but it would do so with the memory of Victoria, the queen who whispered calm into an age of noise. And so we rest, from the long, quiet journey of Queen Victoria's life, a life of gentle resolve, of deep love and deeper loss, of handwritten letters and silent strength. As you close your eyes tonight, may you find comfort in her calm. May your dreams carry you through peaceful gardens, quiet corridors, and the soft twilight of an age gone by. Sleep well,